Thank you, everyone. And you all get special stars for showing up after lunch. So thank you for taking the time also on your Saturday to come out and hear all these inspiring stories. So yes, my topic is from Wall Street to global education, following God's calling. And I love the verse from the American theologian Frederick Buechner. The place God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. And mine is education, but it wasn't always that way. So what I'm going to do in my story is share a little bit about the global education crisis, the solution, and what I believe is a great solution, working for a nonprofit called Edify. And I'll share a little bit about that, and then we'll weave in my own personal story and how I got there. But let me introduce you to one of my favorite friends. That's Wilson. 9 years old, lives in Ghana. That is passion. That's passion and delight in learning, and Wilson's photo is on my desk, and it gives me passion and encourages me every day to keep serving Wilson. That little boy had never seen a computer before, and he was learning to type, and he's doing his Khan Academy math problems. And can you imagine a monitor could talk to you and say, "You're right, you're awesome." And so you can see the delight in learning. Nelson Mandela, one of my great heroes, said, "Education is the most powerful weapon we can use to change the world." You've heard of where's Waldo? Well, where's Abigale? Abigale has always loved the classroom. And weaving in my personal story, I've been very blessed with an incredible education, having gone to Princeton as an undergraduate, and the Wharton Graduate School of Business for an MBA, and a Master's of International Studies at the University of Pennsylvania. But I could be one of those children in the classroom. So wherever I travel, whenever I'm going to visit the schools that we serve at Edify, I'm always looking for the Abigales and want to empower them, to give them great education. Because if you think about it, what is the greatest gift that's had such profound impact in your life, that's given you critical thinking skills, that through contacts has opened up doors and has gotten you to where you are today? It's education. Imagine if you only had a third grade education. Where would you be today? As you can see on the left, in countries around the world, many children never get a chance to go to school. And think about, here we are in Silicon Valley with Stanford and Berkeley, and the great educations for those of you who are coming from outside California have experienced. Maybe you come from a long line of families that have gone to college, but maybe you're the first one in your family to go to college, or the first time anyone in your family has been educated in the United States. Well, what a gift. And isn't it a human right that all children should have access to education? But that's not the case. As you can see on the right, look at those children. That's also delight in learning. So the question we ask is, how can we go from the scenario on the left where children are helping their parents to bring in money to the family? I remember in 2006, the first time I had exposure to education in developing countries was in Ghana, and a little child came onto the bus, our group bus, and he had a basket of oranges. And he said, in his local language, which was translated by the bus driver, "Would anybody like to buy oranges?" And of course, we all bought oranges. But that's when it really dawned on me that this little child needs to be in school. So hundreds of millions of children in the developing world have either no access to education, there's no public school within reach, or if there is one, it's a very, very poor quality. So the World Bank has done studies showing, in Kenya in particular, and it's documented in The Economist, that nearly 40 to 50% of teachers at these schools in the developing world don't show up. So imagine the child's at school, but he's not being taught anything. And so what we believe is the solution is, and again, this is called the $1 a week school. This article and study by the World Bank came out in 2015, is that there are thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs around the world, in Africa, in India, in Latin America, that buy small plots of land and build a little school. And so these are private schools, but not private schools for what we might think of in the United States, but to serve children from impoverished communities. And these schools have very good education because the teachers are hired and they can be fired. Unlike in these public schools where they don't show up, many are unionized. And I know we face some of those problems here in the United States as well. So what is the solution? The solution, we believe, at Edify, and there are very few organizations doing what we're doing. We're a nonprofit founded in 2009, and is to come alongside these entrepreneurs and give them certain services. And the first being access to loan capital. Imagine who's going to lend to one of these entrepreneurs. A Citibank or a Barclays certainly isn't. But with $8,000, an entrepreneur can build a classroom that can educate 35 to 40 children, and it's a 3-year loan, 98% pay the money back, and that means then this is leverage. It will go back to that school as an additional loan for something else, or to another school. And typically, there's classroom construction, or as you can see on the right, latrines. If you can believe, there may only be one girl's latrine and one boy's latrine for a school of 200 to 300. And those latrines might be holes in the ground. And this is showing new, updated latrines. The other area that we focus on and is very meaningful to me in my calling is Christian transformation. The schools that we're working with are Christian schools. They're owned by a Christian entrepreneur who hires Christian teachers, and the goal is to expose children to Christian values and to introduce them to the life of Jesus and to hope that they would become followers of Jesus. We have discipleship clubs. We provide Christian teacher training so teachers can learn about integrating a Christian worldview in the classroom. And that is transformative. I love this photo. I took this photo when I was in Burkina Faso, which I never knew about until I joined Edify several years ago. Is a Muslim country, very, very poor country, former French colony, and 2/3 are Muslims, and yet this child goes to a Christian school. And many of the children hearing about Jesus do become followers of Jesus. And they end up sharing with their parents, and some of them even end up going to church. Now, we're not working in any very, very radical countries, so haven't had issues. But it's incredible to see the transformation of Christ-centered education. And I mentioned on the left, you can see the mother all in black, and I had an opportunity to talk with her, and I was, dumbfounded that a Muslim woman would be sending her child to a Christian school. So I asked her why, because at all of the schools that we're working with, we require 2 to 3 hours of Christian worship teaching a week. And she said she knows that the best education her child can get is from this Christian school. So quality education above all. And the other thing that's important that we always watch for is in many of these countries, if the family has a little bit of money, because these schools are 50 cents, 75 cents a day, it's a priority for the family to send their children to school, and the boys are always educated first. So we make certain in the schools that we're involved with that it's 50-50. Go. I couldn't not be in Silicon Valley and mention technology. And of course, the third area, in addition to loans and training, we do believe that technology is transformative, as you saw with my friend Wilson on the front. So we have provide loans for computer labs. We also believe in literacy programs. You can't imagine what a library looks like in many of these countries. It's a bare cupboard. But now with technology and Kindles, you can get so many books on these devices. And so we're doing a lot around literacy. And of course, we need to present our beloved Stanford. We have a partnership with Dr. Paul Kim, a committed believer, who has invented a wireless portable cloud, and it allows up to 60 wireless devices to be connected to get information on offline versions of things like Wikipedia or Khan Academy, like you saw with Wilson doing his math. And so it's really exciting for these kids to be able to have access to that. And just briefly wanted to mention our work. We've worked with 2,300 plus schools, impacted 635,000 children, and had loan capital of 9 million. Final story is education really is a unifier. And I love this story because in the center is Joseph, and Joseph is the one who had a vision to start a school under a tree, and yet he got to know the tribe leader of his village, a Muslim man who also has a vision for educating the children in his community. He owned the land, and he actually donated it to Joseph, who started this Christian school. So that's an overview on what I do. For me personally, it never was my passion. I can't say that it was always education, but I really wanted to do something that brought together my skills, my experiences. I worked on Wall Street for a number of years, but really never had a passion for it. And through a lot of prayer and seeking God's will, ended up getting involved with this organization. And you may have heard this quote before. I find it very inspiring that God doesn't call the equipped. He equips the called. And it hasn't always been easy. I moved out here a few years ago from Colorado and am trying to raise awareness for what we're doing. And it is challenging, and there are a lot of other great nonprofits doing great work. But God continues to bring in just the right partners like Dr. Paul Kim from Stanford and others. And one of the verses I love that keeps me going is Galatians 6:9, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. And so I have felt, maybe many of you are thinking about your calling and your passion and wondering how God can use your skills and experiences to serve him. And I've just found it an encouragement to keep seeking him, and he continues to open doors. I know he will do that for others. I am very encouraged, too, by the verse in Hebrews chapter 13. May the God of peace equip you with everything good for doing his will, and may the work in us be pleasing to him through Jesus Christ, to whom be glory forever and ever. Amen. So that's a little about my story, and maybe what I'll do is just open it up for a few questions.
We Mass Media, media empowering community.